Hello, I am Russian, and I would like to tell you about a great artist of the 20th century who conquered the whole world. His name is Alexander Vertinsky. Alexander Nikolaevich Vertinsky was born in 1889 into the family of a private agent in Kiev. Born into a family where free love prevailed, Vertinsky and his sister Nadia were deprived of legal rights because their parents were in a civil marriage. Due to Nikolai Vertinsky's inability to marry the mother of his children due to the absence of a divorce from his first wife, they were adopted by their grandfather. Thus, the brother and sister, who lost their parents at an early age, grew up in different families. However, their different upbringing did not affect their interests, and many years later, they reunited, both having become artists. For modern listeners, Alexander Nikolaevich Vertinsky's early songs and arias may seem refined and extravagant, reflecting not only the taste of a bygone era but also the peculiarities of the performer's biography. Exceptional for his time, Alexander Vertinsky felt a passion for the performing arts early on, actively preparing for his future career as an artist. Visiting the theater and performances by visiting celebrities contributed to his creative development, despite a challenging path, including physically demanding work as a loader and a proofreader in a printing house. Vertinsky did not deviate from his dream. He also worked for some time as a laborer with film crews and studios, playing small roles in movies. Vertinsky's debut took place in 1912 in the film Why People Live, where he played the role of an angel. Among the many roles he played, the portrayal of the tramp Anatoly Severik in The King Without a Crown and The Antiquarian, and From Slavery to Freedom 1916 stand out. Vertinsky's first appearance on stage was in 1915, presenting himself in the image of Perrault. His costume changed over time, from white to black, and then black and white. At that time, he sang about poor kids plunged into the cocaine abyss on the wet boulevards of Moscow. Gradually, Alexander Vertinsky developed a unique performance style that included skillful use of his speaking-singing voice. Even the unclear pronunciation of the letter R only added extra. From each song he performed, a small scene with a complete plot transformation emerged, where the characters' images could be outlined with just one or two but vividly memorable details. Originally, Vertinsky's works were called sad songs of Perrault or arias. Soon, he gained well-deserved fame as his songs were easily recognizable, and many other artists performed them. The young performer was literally besieged by his fans, and he, in turn, allowed himself to be carried away by this whirlwind of passions. In his youth, during the pre-revolutionary era in Russia, Alexander Vertinsky found himself entangled in drug addiction but managed to overcome this dreadful vice. In the milieu of the Russian Bohemian society at the beginning of the 20th century, there was a sudden trend for snorting powder. Trying it inadvertently one day, Vertinsky succumbed to the charms of this devilish concoction, and his sister, the actress Nadezhda, followed suit. Describing this dark period of his life in Moscow, Vertinsky recounted the following. It was initially openly sold in pharmacies, in sealed brown jars, 1 gram at a time. The best, from the German firm Mark, cost 50 kopecks per gram. Then it was prohibited from being sold without a prescription, and obtaining it became increasingly difficult. It was now sold under the counter, impure, mixed with tooth powder, and it cost 10 times more. A pinch of it was taken on a goose feather toothpick and inserted deep into the nostril, inhaling the entire powder like snuff. After the first sniff, your brains would clear. For a short time you felt an extraordinary uplift. Clarity of thought, alertness, courage, and audacity. You spoke wittily and brightly. Thousands of original thoughts swirled in your head. Before you, a kind of new world opened up of lofty and beautiful feelings. This lasted for 10 minutes. After a quarter of an hour, cocaine weakened, stopped working. You rushed to paper, trying to write down these thoughts. In the morning, reading what you wrote, you realized it was all nonsense. You couldn't convey your sensations. You took a second sniff. It again cheered you up. For a few minutes, but already less. Clenching your teeth, you sat there, like a tightly screwed kettle with steam, from which it was impossible to release, nuts screwed on so tightly. Further, with the increasing sniffs, you reached the point of complete dullness. Then you fell silent, and sat there, as white as death, with blood-red lips biting them to pain. The sharp desire to inflict physical pain on yourself almost led to madness. But you felt like a genius. All of this was, of course, a cruel deception of the narcosis. You talked nonsense, and normal people literally recoiled from you. Gradually, the poison excited you less and less, and in the end, it completely stopped working, turning you into some kind of imbecile. Then, approximately a year later, severe consequences appeared in the form of paranoia, fear of space, etc. In short, cocaine was the curse of our youth. Many were fascinated by it. Actors carried vials in their vest pockets and charged before every stage appearance. Actresses carried cocaine in powder boxes. Poets, artists dabbled with occasional sniffs borrowed from others, because they often didn't have money for their own cocaine. I remember once I looked out of the attic window where we lived. The window overlooked the roof and saw that the entire slope of the roof under my window was strewn with brown empty jars from Mark's cocaine. How many were there? I began to count in horror. How much did I snort in this year? And for the first time in my life, I was frightened. For Alexander Vertinsky, a year later, visual and auditory hallucinations began to manifest, leading him to urgently turn to his acquaintance, the renowned psychiatrist Professor Bazanov. I explained everything to him, also telling him about how I rode the tram with Pushkin. Ordinary visual hallucinations, he warily remarked. He was silent for a minute, then looked at me and sternly said, "Here's the thing, young man. Either I will put you in a psychiatric hospital right now, where they will cure you in a year or two, or you will immediately quit cocaine right now." He put his hand in the pocket of my jacket and, finding a jar, threw it out the window. "Goodbye," he said, shaking my hand. "Don't come to me anymore." I walked out. Everything was clear. Vertinsky realized he needed to save himself. It was necessary to leave the ruinous Moscow for him. The direction of escape was predetermined by the times towards the front. At that time, the First World War was in full swing. At the beginning of World War I, Alexander Vertinsky served as a medic in a hospital and the sanitary train No. 68, witnessing surgical operations conducted by the renowned Moscow surgeon Chaplin. Vertinsky performed dressing changes for the wounded, read books and letters to the soldiers, and also wrote letters home for them. His dedication to this work was so profound that during this period, he completely forgot about his previous problems with cocaine. He traveled in the sanitary train of the All-Russian Union of Cities named after Maria Morozova No. 68 until its disbandment in 1916. Throughout this time, Vertinsky tended to the dressing of wounded soldiers, occasionally participating in surgical operations. In his free hours, when there were no wounded, he read poems to his comrades, performed well-known songs and romances on the guitar, just like his mercy brother. Secretly, he continued to write poems that he showed to no one. After Alexander Nikolaevich failed to reconcile with the revolution, he decided to emigrate to Greece, where he obtained a passport and continued his creative activities. In the company of such outstanding artists as Chaliapin, Mazukin, and Anna Pavlova, he embarked on concert tours first in Europe and then in America. In the wake of Paris, it's difficult to admire any other city, wrote Vertinsky in 1934. Finding himself in the United States, the artist was irritated by the external glossy sheen of American life, litter in the streets, and the bland, though visually appealing, food. Vertinsky disdainfully viewed popular theatrical productions, vivid and impressive, which he called the taste of Broadway. He lamented the inability to escape from the glare of advertising lights and the constant background noise of radio playing everywhere. However, his debut American concert at the Town Hall, one of the most popular concert halls in the city, was a resounding success and garnered incredible acclaim. His performance attracted the attention of notable personalities such as Sergei Rachmaninoff, Marlene Dietrich, George Balanchine, and Bing Crosby. In New York, Vertinsky also reunited with his longtime friend, the artist David Berliuk, who by then had virtually abandoned painting and worked as a journalist. From 1923 to 1927, Vertinsky lived in Poland, where he met a girl named Irene, who soon became his wife. However, their marriage turned out to be unsuccessful. He then moved to France and later to China, where he entered into a second marriage, and a daughter was born to him. Vertinsky continued to work intensively, sometimes giving 2 concerts a day. In emigration, his creativity underwent significant changes. If before the revolution, he was drawn to exotic countries, now his work began to reflect a sense of nostalgia for his homeland. And the characters in his songs changed. While capricious ladies, clowns, and vagabonds predominated in his earlier work over time, the artist showed an interest in ordinary people and their experiences. His songs became small ballads, and in the 1930s, he took notice of the works of Soviet poets. Alexander Vertinsky always felt drawn to his homeland, and he repeatedly applied to Soviet authorities requesting permission to return. However, he faced visa rejections each time. In 1937, he was allowed to return, but without his wife. Vertinsky, of course, refused this opportunity. The situation only changed in 1943 when his return became a symbol of unity with the Soviet people. During this challenging period, he was permitted to return with his family, including his wife. To provide a relatively decent living for his family, Alexander Vertinsky worked tirelessly, to the point of complete exhaustion. Even at the age of 55, he arranged up to 24 concerts per month. In a duo with the pianist M. Brooks, he gave over 2,000 concerts in 14 years, touring throughout the USSR and performing not only in theaters and concert halls but also in factories, mines, hospitals, and children's homes. The poet's dream was to acquire a country house for his family, where they could keep a cow, or at least a goat. To fulfill this dream, money was needed, and in the cold autumn of 1950, Vertinsky embarked on a nationwide tour, which he later called the Icy Campaign. After the war, Vertinsky actively participated in the film industry, with works including Anna Nashi Anna on the Neck, Zagovor Obrakenik Conspiracy of the Doomed, and Veliki Voin Albani Skanderbeg the Great Warrior of Albania Skanderbeg. His contributions to national art were recognized with the State Prize of the USSR in 1951. Vertinsky continued working until his last day, passing away in 1957 during a tour due to heart failure. So, the life story of one remarkable Russian individual has come to an end. Thank you for watching. I kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel and give it a like. It will greatly help my fledgling channel reach a broader audience and share more about Russia and its history.
Бананово-лимонном Сингапуре, ой, когда поет и плачет океан и гонит под слепительной ладуй птиц дальний караван. Бананово-лимонном Сингапуре, ой, когда у вас на сердце тишина, вы